this would probably be one of Riz Ahmed's best performance because the way he is able to portray a person who is deaf and he himself having to understand what a deaf person goes through, and I think he portrays it very well.
The community that is really being affected by, and he knows how to play this role with dignity. And while I do think this is among his best performances, I don't necessarily nail it down as his number one, but it's definitely a top 3 or top 5 for me for sure. You're listening and watching the Real Anime Podcast. My name is Mohnish, and as always, I'm here today with my co-host Lewis. And in a film with a deafening music genre and a deaf person who is fighting every battle on every front, we are here to talk about Darius Marder's Sound of Metal, starring Riz Ahmed alongside Olivia Cook. And yes, this film came out in 2019 or something like that, but it is a film that really is super relevant even today. And I just think that there are many films today that tackle disabilities in a way that may not necessarily give the respect necessary to a film that should be respecting the community that it represents. But The Sound of Metal is a film that brings respect to a community that has definitely been overlooked for too long, and one that really brings the joy of raw performances to the forefront, with Olivia Cook and Riz Ahmed really just knocking it out of the park in a stacked ensemble of character actors. So today we're of course talking about The Sound of Metal, which is a film that centers around a heavy metal drummer named Ruben, played by Riz Ahmed, as he begins to lose his hearing with progressive hearing loss. And when a doctor tells him that his condition will worsen, and the kind of goal the doctor wants is to sort of preserve the hearing he's got left. And the doctor's first note is, if you're exposed to any loud sounds, guess what? You can't do that anymore. Where he's a drummer in heavy metal, loud sounds is all he hears. And of course, he's with a girlfriend, Lou, who is basically going through a lot of mental illness on her side as well. And she's got cuts on her wrists, and there's a lot of morning ritual that they go through to sort of work through her possible depression and self-destructive thoughts. So there's all these struggles with mental illness and health, as well as ideas about how to move forward in life despite these challenges. So it's really, I wouldn't go as far to say as it's an entirely heartwarming film or it's easy to watch, but it is a film that is very important and has such a great message across the line that I personally think it's one of the best films I've seen recently. So definitely one of my favorite films today. But Lewis, what about you? Do you think this is one of those films that you were happy to watch?
I mean, if you guys were to check out my Letterboxd, I give it a 5 out of 5.
So did I. Yeah.
I love it. I love the film because, I mean, I've watched a lot of films which includes like music itself. You know, one of the best examples will probably be Bohemian Rhapsody, you know, and also Whiplash, for example. Like, these two films are like sort of like the first like, you know, when you mention a genre regarding like something to do related with music, these two films are like one of the two films that pops into my head. But I mean, The Sound of Metal itself, I love the film itself. I mean, it's a perfect way of portraying, like, you know, the communities that, you know, we don't really talk about a lot in cinema nowadays, especially this film being almost 7 years old already, where, you know, this film is still relevant in today's age. And sometimes, like, we need to be able to like reach out to those communities who needs, like, you know, the power of cinema to spread the message across.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of those things, and Sound of Metal does that amazingly. Now, some of the characters that I just talked about in my introduction were Ruben, who's played by Riz Ahmed, and then we have Lou, who is played by Olivia Cook. Now, these two are British actors playing American parts, but you can see the way that they really embody their characters, and they live in a trailer, which you can see in Lewis's background right behind him. So that's kind of the kind of film we're looking at. You know, it's not necessarily a road film per se, but it's got a lot of those aspects. It feels, you know, without the coloring and the music, it's kind of Paris, Texas, but in a barer form, much more rougher form, I suppose. But a way of looking at this is these two characters, Ruben and Lou, they feel incredibly real. They feel incredibly, you know, lost, isolated, despite living together and both experiencing their own challenges, right? So, Louis, can you tell us a little bit about Ruben and who he is? and a little bit about Lou and who she is, just to give us both a bit of understanding about who these characters really are. Just short intros.
Okay, very simple. Ruben, the bloke who plays the drums. Lou is the one who basically sings and does the other stuff for the band. Basically, they're basically like a two-man crew. Well, sorry, a lady and a male crew. All right, these two guys these two people, they're a couple, part of a band, live in a truck, and they're trying to make a name for themselves in the music world. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
Tell us a little bit about Lou. Who is she outside of the performances?
Okay, so obviously Lou is basically played by Olivia Cook over here, and she's basically, the girlfriend of Ruben over here. So obviously Olivia itself, she's the type of character who really, really cares for Ruben, I still remember one of the scenes where like Olivia did not notices something wrong with Ruben himself. I actually got the minute itself actually over here. I think it was towards the 20 to 30 minute of the film around there. I remember that like you could really see that she really cares for Ruben itself. She really cares for Ruben itself because like there was a moment where they was playing at a show, and then I remember that Ruben was having like a breakdown in a way because he couldn't hear. The first thing other people will probably just like bash that person for be like, oh, why are you ruining the show or blah 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 blah. But first thing she thought to herself was just like, okay, look, let me go check up on him. Clearly there's something not right with him, and you know that you can see that she's the type of caring person that like really cares for Ruben at the start itself. Want to make sure that he's okay, and there was another bit where she said that she would literally cancel their world tour that the two of them were meant to go just for Ruben to get better and for him to get like treated for his ear. Obviously, I don't think there is no treatment for deaf people, but I know you could use like forms of like wearing a hearing aid itself.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ruben's condition is progressive. He will lose his hearing.
Yeah, so
doctors basically diagnosed him with that, and they're like, this is progressive hearing loss, yada yada yada. There is a surgery you can have for about $40,000 where they put an implant in your ear and you'll have your hearing, but it's not exactly going to be the same.
Yes,
You can't be
it's not
around
clear.
those loud sounds anymore.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing is basically he will have to live a life without being able to do what he loves the most, which is playing in his heavy metal band with his girlfriend. But Lewis, I like the direction you're going with talking about Lou and everything, but tell us a little bit more about her struggles, like her mental illness and how she has to, navigate that, because obviously Ruben's story is very well told in this, but Lou is definitely another main character if you think about it, with her mental illness and how she has to navigate that and how Ruben is her support system. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so Ruben and Lou over here, you have two different characters. One is literally losing their hearing. Another one is literally going through mental problems, right? So, I mean, with Lou's character itself, her role in the film itself is like, not to say it's overshadowed by Ruben himself, but in a way, she kind of has to like deal with a lot of problems that she's facing in a way, right? Especially having to deal with like Ruben's condition itself, which kind of has taken like a toll on her in a way where it's kind of like made her think like, okay, so now things have gone from bad to worse, it literally got so bad to the point where they can't even make any money because of Ruben can't play. He's literally had, and then it got to a point later in the film where I know it's not about Lou, but then Ruben also had to sell their what is call it, their minivan, their RV, their basically their big van itself, where it also kind of adds to the burden of herself itself, knowing that like, okay, this is like some of the sacrifices that they have to make for Ruben to get healed better. And then also I think it's just like how Olivia kind of like, deals with her mental problems will probably be like through music itself. But she can't do that anymore because obviously she obviously wants to like, give up, not to say give up, but let's just say postpone for a while to make sure that Ruben gets better and stuff. And that in a way, kind of like just like, you're like taking a part of her life where she feels so happy, she's able to like be able to, show her emotions through music. But that's been taken away because like of an unfortunate event that has happened to her boyfriend, which is progressive hearing, which sounds like progressive metal.
Loss. Progressive hearing loss.
Progressive hearing loss.
I mean, like that's definitely, Lou definitely has, her own struggles with her own mental illnesses. And I feel like Ruben does a really interesting thing where, okay, a lot of the film shows Lou supporting Ruben, but I always like to look at the trailer sequence right after the opening metal performance where you find them waking up and then Ruben makes Lou breakfast and he dances with her a little bit and you can tell she's not really in the best mood when she wakes up, and then you see like the cuts on her wrist, which is not shown in a close-up, it's just shown in a medium shot where it's not really, you're not drawn to it in terms of like the director is not really shouting at, oh, look at this. It's more of like, oh, look, she's waking up, and then you notice she happens to have cuts on her arms, which is a really tasteful way of doing it and showing her more as a character and not a broken thing to fix. But I feel like Lou is such an important character for me when I look at this film, because Ruben, of course, he's the main character and his story is going to be told. But Lou also had him as her support system, right? And I feel like this brings us to the real question. Is Lou actually good for Ruben, or is she just part of a life that he should leave behind? Because, and I say this because sometimes these people, the two of them, right, with this kind of problems impacting their lives, tend to become sort of outgrow one another. Because Ruben, across the course of this film, he finds a deaf community where basically it's a residential sort of like recovery group of and a school for deaf people, which is run by a man named Joe, who is a Koda. And now Koda is basically a acronym for Child of Deaf Adults, and it's a term commonly used in the deaf community. And the group has this like thing about like deaf culture, where it teaches that deafness is not a disability or a condition that has to be fixed. And this is a theme that is really strong in the film. It teaches you more about acceptance, how to be grateful, and how to show that, hey, just because you're losing this doesn't mean you have to lose all of yourself. But Lou, of course, is not she does not have progressive hearing loss. So there's a bit of a, how do I put this? There's a bit of a distance that's created by Ruben's healing and her being sort of left behind. Even though she's technically his support system, this deaf recovery group becomes his new support system, if you think about it. And it feels like, he's leaving her behind, but not necessarily on purpose. And Lou has her own bag of problems, which, of course, whether she's responsible for them or not, problems are problems. Just like Ruben had his bag of problems with his progressive hearing loss and how that affected their band, their world tour, and all these things, which are opportunities that Lou, for sure, would have been able to benefit from. So the question, again, we come back to is Lou actually still good for Ruben's life, or is she just part of a life that he should leave behind, and the two of them go their separate ways so that they can both heal and be better individuals?
Give me a moment. Let me read that question one more time. Hold on. Is Lou good for Ruben? Because this question is kind of making my brain go. It's making my brain working. Let's just say.
Yeah. I mean, like, let's talk about it. Like, what do you what do you just want to understand first?
Okay, I mean, to answer that question itself, you have two individuals who have the same common interest, which is playing metal music itself. However, they can't do that no more because it's due to Ruben's hearing problem, and also like I think that's mainly the reason why they can't play music, because I think it's majority of the reason could be due to his hearing.
Well, I mean, Lou also has her own mental illness that she's dealing with, her depression. So I don't really think it's just Ruben anymore after a while.
50-50.
It may initially after that's what I was going to say. I was going to be like, initially, yes, maybe Ruben's problem was the thing, but then you start to notice that Lu also has her own battles to fight, and then that becomes a whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on with your own thing.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at the start of the film itself, it almost looks like it was a 90-10 split. But then as you progressively got into the film, let's just say towards like maybe let's just say like towards the hour part of the film, afterwards itself, from 90-10, it became 50-50. Now, with these two people like having their own problems, as much as it hurts to say, or something that you really, really passionately love to do, sometimes you just have to leave it behind, really, you know? Like, a good example is probably like, you have like those
No,
famous.
I get what you're saying, but you're talking about the heavy metal.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the two people. Should he
Okay.
leave Lu behind? Not heavy metal, because to be fair, he can play heavy metal
Yeah.
again if he doesn't, if he takes out his implant. There is a way, but should he leave her behind? Because she also needs to go and get herself right, heal herself. But she cannot do that if she feels like she needs to keep on supporting him, even though he's already found a community to support him and help him work through his new life reality lah, basically, of not having his hearing. So the question is, should he leave her so that she can get better?
I would say that in my opinion, if you're in a relationship, no matter what respective partner is going through, I think there should be a way for them to be able to find a solution for it together.
Oh no, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I think for sure there should be a solution. But the solution, what if it is to leave? That is the question. The question is not because like we're right now thinking, oh, they have to stay together. But what if the solution to both their problems was for Ruben to go and fully live in the deaf community full time, and for Lu to go and get into rehab or get a therapist, and they can't be together if that's the case, because Lu cannot live in the deaf community.
If you were to put it that scenario, then yeah, you could say in a way where like,
That
okay,
is the scenario.
I know, but I mean in a scenario where if like Ruben wants to be part of the deaf community, he's already got a community. He's already got a bunch of people who is exactly the same like him. And then that he'll be able to like begin, not to say his healing process itself, but he'll be able to like just be with like a bunch of people that he knows. He's basically like the same with, in a way.
I mean, like that's a great point actually.
Yeah.
Because I think he's trying to get used to learning how to live his new life.
Yeah.
And maybe there might be a future where he gets to understand how to communicate with ASL and how to really function in the society again as a progressively deaf person. Like then he can go and find Lu again. There's nothing stopping him from finding Lu again. It's just in this moment, it may seem like the most painful decision for two people, that in order for the both of them to become the best version of themselves, they actually do need to go their separate ways. Because Lu is just going to get worse if she lives with Ruben in the deaf community, because no one's going to be there to support her, because Ruben will be focused on healing and learning how to live with his new reality, right? But Lu is just going to get progressively worse and worse, because now there's no more breakfast, no more juice, no more dancing in the morning. Ruben can't even hear what music he's going to play this time. Like that. Like there's the reality. He can no longer take care of her in the same manner, right? So I suppose the answer to that question, what do you think, Luis? Yes or no?
I would say yes. After discussing about it, yes. Because why? Ruben, I mean, no one wants to go deaf, obviously. I mean, obviously with Ruben, and plus if you're like experiencing something, not to say life-changing, but something like an unfortunate event where you literally like can't hear, which is like one of the basic things you need as a human to be able to function in like certain activities. It's just like basically being reborn again. Like being,
and he's a musician by the way.
It's not like Stevie Wonder's, for example. Man is blind, but he can still play, right? Or like the Italian, there's like another Italian singer who knows how to sing, but then he's obviously blind. I forgot his name, but yeah. But I mean, if you literally lose the hearing part of like, as a musician, then how else are you going to play music if you can't hear? And plus, you
Yeah,
literally got to
and
start from.
what do you think? What do you think about Lou's situation? Do you think it actually would benefit her to leave Ruben, to go and get herself?
Yes, it would be good for them to separate each other, so then each of them can focus on their respective problems. I mean, yes, Lou might miss out on like the things such as like the breakfast in the morning, dancing in the morning, and blah 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 stuff like that. But there are bigger issues than like dancing in the morning and making breakfast in the morning. There are bigger issues that you have to focus on before you be able to be able to have them moments again.
I mean, those moments was how Ruben was supporting her. She's
Yeah,
not in love with him because she dances with him in the morning. She's not in the mood in the morning,
yeah,
and in order for her not to get into that depression mode, he does that routine
yeah,
for her
yeah.
in the morning, right? So I feel like he's not going to be able to do that in the same way anymore. Like obviously, maybe once he learns how to function in a society again, he'll be able to do it. But I think for me personally, the when I look at it, as much as it hurts me to say, I feel like they should go their separate ways in order for them to become the people that the best versions of themselves, and then hopefully down the line, fingers crossed, they meet each other again and fall in love and have lots of babies.
Mana tahu?
You
That
know,
could be the
like
second film. That could be the second
no,
film you're writing.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like it's not the end of the world, but at the same time, it is going to feel like the end of the world in this moment, lah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it might be end of the world for the present. Like if you're talking about the present times itself, but you never know in the future. One fine day, after like some moments by themselves, like they be able to heal by themselves, work on their respective problems. There might you never know. The world works in mysterious ways. Let's just say.
Exactly. But now on to our second discussion, Lewis, where we're talking about a more technical side of things. Now, you
Okay.
as a person who's currently editing his current short film, Lost Answers, coming out soon, you are a person who's also editing your current short film, so I think you're going to agree with me when I say this, that sound design is a very, very important part of the filmmaking process. And in a film like Sound of Metal, the sound design is top tier. It's really one of the things even I was learning a bunch of things from, and I was like, oh wow, I'm gonna borrow that. And there's a lot of moments to really accentuate the experience of deafness and really make the audience feel it. And I experimented actually earlier by listening to certain scenes on headphones and just being like, what's this sound like? And it was definitely quite the experience, because sound design in the Sound of Metal is really, really amazing, because I know the Sound of Metal sounds like a really loud movie and a bunch of loud heavy metal music, and of course there is moments of that, but I think the film is a lot quieter than people give it credit for, right? So in your opinion, Luis, what do you think is so important about sound design in a movie?
Well, first things first. If you're gonna do sound editing, make sure you wear headphones. All right, that's what my ex-boss always tells me last time. Wear your headphones, right? Because sound editing in the film itself, especially whilst as we speak now, I'm editing my film. Whenever it's out, that's for you guys to find out. Sound in a way can not to say make or break a film, but it can at least help elevate your story itself. Like give you a good example of like good sound in the film. Let's just take like any sort of score with like Hans Zimmer. Maybe take the film like Dune for example. You know how sound, how the music kind of elevates like the music, like elevates the music. Sorry, elevates the story through the music itself. Obviously, the music is there to help elevate the music, of course. That's a good example of how like sound is used in a way to like maybe have like some you have like some unease in your body, some like emotions and stuff like that. These are like certain things that like sound makes you want to do when you're watching your film itself. And for in the Sound of Metal itself, there were moments where like I was wearing headphones and I thought, hey, did my earphones disconnect or something? But actually it's just pure silence. So in reality, that's one of the rare films where sometimes silence can speak louder than a non-silent.
That's got to be terrifying for a person who's been hearing his entire life, and someone who's a musician, heavy metal, really loud sounds, suddenly just nothing. That
It's
must be
terrifying.
terrifying.
I think
Yeah,
you'd be more than
but
terrified.
yeah, no, but I mean, Lewis, like that brings us to our following discussion actually, which is, how do you find personally as a fan of heavy metal, like the contrast between the heavy metal, which is not exactly the most quiet genre in the world, and the contrast between the silence you were just talking about in the sound of metal? Like, how do you find it in the story, lah? Like, is it weird? Is it too jarring? Does it work? Does it not work? It was the director on Katom, like.
It certainly works because you associate heavy metal, like I'm talking about just the specific genre heavy metal, because you do have a bunch of other metal genres, progressive metal, metalcore. I'm just talking about pure heavy metal itself. Yes, it's very noisy. Yes, it's you have loud. Everything's loud, and there's no and everything's fast paced and everything's like bang bang bang. But once you match it with the silence itself in the film itself, oh, it's no more heavy metal. It's progressive metal already. That's
like if you're talking about it exactly like that, that's actually a really good comparison, Lewis. But if you think about it, before you see the film, right? Someone goes, "Oh, we're gonna have a really loud music, but we're gonna use a lot of silence." It's not really. It doesn't make sense because it's like two extremes, right? But how did it feel to you in the story when you see Riz Ahmed go from like the bang bang bang, the drums, and then suddenly it's when he's experiencing his hearing loss for the first time? Did the impact really hit you when suddenly there was no sound?
It certainly hit me, but I mean, I'm quite used to listening to like some like progressive metal songs where it just like goes completely silent. So for me, it's nothing new to me personally. But let's say if you were to like if someone was like to like not
imagine if that was your hearing, no?
If you're talking about it from my hearing's perspective, I'll be like, alamak. I'll panic. I'll panic. If it will happen to me, I'll panic literally.
That actually brings us into another great point, which is Riz Ahmed really does an amazing job, right? He really has an amazing performance, right, in this film, and I feel like, of course, alongside another great bunch of actors, but Riz Ahmed specifically, in my opinion, has not been given all the roles that he should have been given. Like he's gotten some amazing roles, and unfortunately, he's been seen as the substitute to Dev Patel, which is insane to me, because the two of them are separate actors on their own, and they're there by their own merit. But now the most important question is Riz Ahmed an underrated actor in your opinion, Lewis?
I mean, to be honest with you, he is underrated. Why is he underrated? Just go watch Sound of Metal. That's it. Let me paint you an example. If you were to get someone like
actually, I got a fun way of painting this picture. Convince a movie director why Riz Ahmed will be right for their film. That's more fun.
Okay. Like it could be any film we're talking about.
Any. Like if he's a movie director wanting to cast for some random film, why would you ask Riz Ahmed? Why would you convince him to hire Riz Ahmed?
Okay, reason being why I would convince like that film director itself, whoever the film director may be, I would say that like Riz Ahmed is a perfect example because like this type of role that you are asking him to do, Riz Ahmed himself to do, is not like very common if you're talking about any film. Now let's think about it for a minute. Most films itself, it's not really catered. It doesn't talk about the community, not the community. It doesn't talk about deaf, like the deaf community itself, right? Like let's just talk like majority of films. I'm sure there are like some films that
with respect.
With respect. Obviously, with respect, not bashing it, but with respect to the deaf community, there are films that raise awareness about it. And the reason why I would say this, because like the way that Riz Ahmed managed to give respect to the deaf community itself, he did a fantastic job on being able to like, kind of like in a way, like obviously in real life he's not deaf, of course. He can perfectly hear fine. And this is one of the roles where you're telling yourself, it's just like telling yourself, oh, you can't breathe. I'm like, it's like you're telling yourself you can't breathe. And imagine that you tell that person to like just pretend to be deaf. How do you pretend when you don't even know what's it like? Right? So if you're able to like pull off like an attempt to be deaf in a film, obviously with respect on how it's done and everything, not like bashing it or anything, I would say that he's done a fantastic job of portraying someone who this is like what deaf people literally go through in the day-to-day life. Okay, obviously maybe they wouldn't be playing like drums like how he does, even whilst him being deaf also. But in a way, I'm just saying to any director out there, I'm sure if you're able to give him like a role where he's able to hear properly, I'm sure he'll be able to excel properly. What do you think, Monish?
To be honest with you, I agree completely with what Lewis is talking about because Riz Ahmed has proven, I think, many times that he's an amazing character actor, and the respect he's given the deaf community has been there. But another point I'd like to highlight also is The Sound of Metal was nominated for 6 Oscars, taking home 2. In the categories which I personally believe are the most important categories when it comes to a film like this. Now, of course, we want Riz Ahmed to be awarded for his performance, like I said. But let's be honest, the Oscars are not necessarily the most. It's a popularity contest from time to time, so it does tend to be, not exactly what people would expect. But I love the 2 Oscars that they did win, which actually teaches me a lot about film because I learned a lot from watching this film, and I actually plan to rewatch it now, knowing the Oscars that it won, because now I know what to focus on to learn. And the Oscars that they won was for best film editing and for best sound, which tells you everything you need to know. Because when you're making a film about the deaf community or someone suffering from deafness, your sound editing is automatically the most important thing you can do. And of course, film editing film is an editor's medium. If you're a great filmmaker, you can be a great writer, you can be a great director, but if you're not a halfway decent editor, your skill is never going to come across the screen. And so that really shows why The Sound of Metal is more than just some guy hitting drums and losing his hearing. And on the topic of deafness, I'd love to actually highlight a Malaysian film that did a good job on this, which is called Abang Adik. It came out in 2023, and now that is a film that I also thought gave some real thought to how a deaf community is portrayed, and among many other things that it explores in that about stateless people and stateless communities. But there's another one which is called Badak, which came out in 2025. Now, I've seen some good reviews about it. I've not seen the film myself, but I've seen the trailer though. And the trailer basically makes the film feel like a Malaysianized version of Koda. Koda is another film that was a Best Picture win for, I believe it was Apple TV. They won Best Picture at the Oscars, and it's a film that centers around a deaf family with a non-deaf daughter, and it's a whole thing. And it's the same premise, except this is between a father and his musically talented daughter, and it's the similar relationship you'd have in Koda as well. And I think these films really show a certain appreciation for a community that is now beginning to see more of light, as you will, because I feel like the blind community, there's a way to make them cool lah. You got Stevie Wonder. You don't need more cool than Stevie Wonder. That guy is the coolest guy in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And then you got Daredevil, who is a blind guy, and he's a superhero. So there's always those things that help to bring awareness, no matter how nice the cover looks, right? And that to me really gives me such a lot of inspiration for these types of films, right? But Lewis, I think we can look at The Sound of Metal, and of course it's got like so many different things that you want to say about the deaf community and whatever, but the film was made on a budget of 5.4 million, which, if you think about it in film terms, is not exactly the most money. Now, of course, it's still a decent amount of cash to make an indie film, right? But why do you think, Louis, that films like these are important? Low budget, character-driven type films. Like why do you think these are so important? Like, for me personally, I think low budget films and character-driven films really push the most creative filmmakers to the top of the pile, because automatically you don't have access to the best locations, you may not have access to the best equipment, and it's all about seeing how you're able to circumvent that and build a proper film out of that and make it look good and feel complete. And I feel that I hope more people go and support films like these. But yeah, Louis, what about you? Why do you think films like these are so important?
I mean, the result speaks for itself. I mean, like this in box office, it managed to gain over almost 520 million USD alone, right? Let's just say it's less is more. You don't need to, like I said, you do not need to. I say again I said it in many podcasts, and I'll say it again. You do not have to have the highest budget. You don't need to have like the best actors and everything. You don't need to have like this. You don't need have to have the most flashiest design itself. you just work with the budget that you have and know how to work around it. You don't work with like, oh, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. No, that's not how things work. The reality is like, okay, this is what I have, this is how much I have to spend, this is what I'm gonna do. So then at least, like these types of films kind of paint you a way on like how to like be able to appreciate the things that you have around you and not always thinking about the things that you don't have around you. There you go. That's a quote by Louis Knight. Appreciate the things that you have, but not what you don't have. How about that for some food for thought? And films like this, they do really like pave the light for like how like, like how these like low budget films can be into something. I'm just saying.
Yep.
You just
now
just get a camera out and that's it.
Exactly. I mean, that's definitely one of those things. And now, as a tradition now dictates, we are going to end off our podcast by reading some Letterboxd reviews to really, show the people what's up. Lewis, I have sent you the Letterboxd reviews, pictures of them. So I will be reading the first review, and I will be reading I will be reading the first and the fourth review. You read the second and third, okay? So I'll start with the first review. So this is by Oni and Sound of Metal. She watched this in 2020. Now, Oni's actually a personal friend of mine. So hi, Oni. Thank you for watching the podcast. I picked your review because now she's actually really, really big on Letterboxd. She's a Letterboxd Pro user, as you can see. So this is actually, thank you very much for allowing me to use this, for giving me such a great review. And she says, my sis is simping for Riz after I made her watch this with me today. Wink face. So, lesson number 1, don't watch this with your girlfriend because now that's Riz Ahmed's girlfriend. All right. Lewis, why don't you read the second and third one?
Okay, the second one is from Y Ato W. I don't know how to say his name, but never mind. Yeah, so he gave it 4 stars. He said, yeah, it was pretty good. The middle felt almost like a documentary. He's actually not wrong.
What do you think?
He's actually not wrong. The middle part, it was like almost like a documentary bit.
I think that's why he didn't give it 5 stars, because he didn't like that it felt like a documentary.
I mean, he gave it 4 stars, but I mean, that's still, in my eyes.
I mean, 4 stars is pretty high, but we gave it 5 stars.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're just missing that star. But does it feel like a documentary? I mean, from the hour mark itself, from like literally from the hour mark itself, you already have like, okay, the moments where like from the 1 hour exact itself, Ruben starts to play music itself, when he's on the slide itself, starts creating a beat itself. Yeah, I mean, that's like some of the coping mechanisms of like how maybe, like how deaf people sometimes, instead of like hearing, they feel things. And then also I can see the documentary bit fine where he's coming from, because obviously there was a scene where Ruben was going into the surgery room and then there was like a close-up of like doing like in the ear canal and stuff like that. Fine. But at the same time, also documentary. I don't know. I mean, film and documentary. I mean, we could do a podcast about it another day. Why film is not a form of a documentary, actually, if you think about it. But yeah, we got but we got stuff to do, and it'll probably.
So the third one. What about the third one?
Okay, so this one is Giaba, and she said, Ruben's "Please Kill Me" tattoo was foreshadowing for how I was going to feel at the end of the movie. Ooh, and she gave 4.5 stars. I mean, yeah, I think you are right.
I mean, it is a very sad and dark feeling sometimes.
I mean, it's very dark. I mean, we don't kill, like, please don't please kill me.
Yeah, don't listen to the tattoo. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, don't listen to the tattoo. We do not condone all of this. I mean, I think what Giaba is trying to say is just like maybe like how she's feeling emotionally, if you get what I mean. Like maybe emotionally when she reaches the ending.
It's a very, very emotional film.
She's right in an emotional sense, but please don't kill.
Do not do that.
We don't condone Giaba. We do not condone that. We don't condone that. We don't condone that on the Real Anime podcast. Okay. Mohnish. Oh yes. Last but not least, Mohnish. What about you?
Last but not least, okay. So this is from Mia Shauki. I wonder if it's like the actress Mia Shauki. Anyway, no, it could be though. It looks like her. Anyway,
Mia Shoki, not the other one.
yeah.
Huh?
No. Wait. I don't know what he's talking about. I am God style. This one you listen to him. Anyway, he is the bad boy. Christine, if you're watching, you he's the one say, okay. So Sound of Metal. So Mia Shauki, she watched this on the 1st of September 2024. Now she says, love this film, not only because of its story, but seeing the behind the scenes of what Riz Ahmed had to do as an actor to really carry the story along is so heartwarming. You can see that they actually put a lot of care in regards to the community that they're telling the story about, and it's a film about appreciation rather than appropriation. Oh, gonna steal that. Sound design as well, beautiful stuff. Now, all I will say, I watched a little bit of the behind the scenes. They put a microphone into Riz Ahmed's mouth.
Come again?
Because, yeah, they took a small mic and they popped it in his mouth like a pill.
What happened if he follows the swing? Swallows it.
Ironically, the connection will still be there. Yeah, the reason they put it in his mouth and he kept it here, like just behind his teeth here. They wanted to hear the insides of his organs move, basically lah. So they could literally hear him move his neck. They could hear the inside of his heart beating. They could hear him like breathing, swallowing. You can literally watch this. It was literally like a tiny mic, like a lav mic, and they popped it into his mouth. So that's one of the interesting things. That's the extent they went to get the sound design. You can even hear his bones moving, apparently.
Well,
so
I guess
that's how far they cared about the sound design. So
that's Foley taken to the next level. So there you go.
Yeah, it's literally internal Foley right there. Imagine if you had stomachache and you put that mic in there. Oh, yo.
Oh, imagine if you swallow the thing by accident. Then, good luck.
Well, I mean, it's going to come out the other end, but the worst part is everyone's going to hear it.
They'll be like, "Oi, bullshit."
No, I wouldn't be touching that mic again. I'm telling you.
I'll be like, yeah, it is.
But what I will say is, from the folks on Letterboxd, you all have, as usual, made some wonderful opinions. Someone is simping lah. Someone thought it was a documentary. Another one said, "Please kill me." But what's your name? Giaba? Don't do that. It's not nice.
Ciabatta bread is not good for you.
We can generally see that the film was received pretty well. 4.5 stars, 4 stars, 4.5 stars, 4.5 stars. We are the two that gave it 5 stars. So honestly, I feel like this is one of those times where the entire audience is on the same page lah, where you can't go wrong. And I really hope that we recommend that people recommend this movie more. I know it's not necessarily looking like the most flashy movie, but I feel like if they recommend it more, they might enjoy it more. So
that is true.
Yeah, and just before we end off, like Lewis mentioned, he did also write a lovely review on Letterboxd, which I just happen to be reading at the moment. And yeah. And I also have a review on Letterboxd, but it's not as good as Lewis' review. So do check it out. Our Letterboxd is linked in the Spotify episode and our link and our YouTube episodes as well. And actually, while we are on here, just before we go, thank you all very much for the amazing love that you've been giving the I Saw the Devil podcast, because that has already become the second highest podcast rating on our YouTube and has already hit a decent amount of downloads and streams on Spotify. We are currently at 198 downloads and streams on Spotify, so thank you very much. And of course, our dear friends and fans on Instagram who have given our first reel over 2,000 views, several saves. Thank you all very much. We're glad you appreciate the reels and the work that's being put into them. Just want to let you all know Lewis is the one who painstakingly edited those reels, so do give him a round of applause. He can't hear you, but just like Ruben, he will be able to handle it. Now, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching, and see you all in the next one.